Well, welcome to Minhag Dirigo. I am your host, soon-to-be Rabbi Brian Kresge, and joining me today are the founders of Chavurat HaBayit, uh, Leora, I'm going to get this right, Leora Kirk,
Yep.
Jennie Shapiro, and Julia
Bailin.
Bailin,
Yep.
and very delighted to have you guys here. And if you wouldn't mind just going around and introducing yourselves, that would be fantastic. And we can start in last name alphabetical order. So, Julia, if you'd like to go first, that would be great.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure what sort of level of detail to start with, but I always like to introduce myself by saying I was born and raised in Maine. That's really important to me. I currently live in Yarmouth. I'm raising three young Jewish kids, all under the age of 11. I'm married to a beautiful Jewish man. I have been involved in Jewish life in various ways in the state of Maine since I moved back here probably about 15 years ago or so. But I am a Jew by choice, and I will probably bring that up later in this conversation. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Awesome. I no, that is fantastic. And I'd like to say that most Jewish men are beautiful, but that's uh, Leora, how about you?
Yeah. So I grew up in a little town in the Negev in Israel called Arad. So right above the Dead Sea, very close to Masada. So that area of Israel is very close to my heart. I moved to Maine to start basically following my family here, but to go to school. And I like to say I got stuck in Maine in the best possible way. So met my husband, and we have two girls. And I think for us, it's like, right, a Mainer by choice. And so we love being here, but we had to create the community that we wanted. And like we said, I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit more. But yeah, happy to be here.
Well, that's fantastic. And Jenny,
So I am also a Mainer through and through. I grew up in Maine, and so did my husband, in the local Jewish community. We actually met in the Portland area when we were very young. My parents always joke that they knew him before they knew me. And we have three young kids. And we live in Falmouth, and yeah, just it's been my great grandparents came here, from Latvia, and so they've been here for a while, and we've been here for a while, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more about that too.
that's fantastic. Well, who wants to tell me what Chavurat HaBayit is all about?
That's Jenny.
Well, Chavurat HaBayit is all about bringing people together, bringing families together, and people of all ages to experience Jewish joy. And we started off very small. We're really a grassroots organization that grew more rapidly than we anticipated. I would say about a year and a half ago, not even a year and a half ago, a group of us, a small group, like four of us, four families, were sitting around a Shabbat table, kind of talking about what are we going to do? It's post October 7th. We're in a different world now. Our kids are in a different world, and we're just feeling this immense pressure from the outside world. What do we do? And we decided, well, let's just start having Shabbat dinners, and we'll all agree we love Israel, and we love being Jewish, and let's just celebrate that part of ourselves. And the Shabbat dinners grew and grew and grew. We called them Shabbat Lux. People would bring a dish to share. And I think we picked up people along the way, and we kind of turned to each other and we said, what if we sort of made this an official family learning program where we, learned together and loved being Jewish and showed our kids that they too can love being Jewish and be proud of who they are.
And I guess this is where now I did send these questions in advance, so I hope I'm not surprising anybody. What was there a gap in Portland's Jewish landscape that you felt you needed to fill? Was there a point where you said, well, this does what we have here, we need something more?
I'll speak to the Israeli side and I'll let Julia and Jenny speak to the Jewish Mainer side. But on the Israeli front, I know, so the Israelis are in Maine. We're a very small group. There's about 100 of us. So we're not very big and we're very easy to overlook in a lot of ways because we're a little scattered. Like, so we're about 100 of us Israelis, but we're all across the state. And so there aren't enough mass of us in any one place, right? And so for a long time, it was fine and it was sufficient enough for us to get together occasionally and to have our WhatsApp groups and to just, meet when we could. And post October 7th, we felt an enormous gap and kept going to, different congregations and different institutions and saying, do something for us. Can you create something for us? Like, where are we going to go? Where can we go to be together? And there was just no real answer to that. I would say Chabad opened their doors to us in a massive way. And for a long time, they created the house for the Israelis that we needed. And we are in turn always grateful for Chabad for everything that they do. But we really felt a need to kind of have a home for us too, a bite for our Israeli group as well. And we're just so fortunate to be able to partner with Julia and Jenny and create this home that we so desperately wanted. And so for the Israelis, there was definitely a gap.
Yeah.
I know I didn't give you this question in advance. Did things like ceasefire resolutions at the municipal level, did any of that factor into your need for
It was
these
all of that. It was so when October 7th happened, and that's not to say that other institutions didn't respond. They responded in their own way, but I think the Israelis didn't feel like, for a long time, we didn't feel like the response was visible enough or strong enough or loud enough. And so we felt like we needed to become that loud voice that was missing. And so one of the first um, ceremonies or memorials or what we would call it was organized by the Israelis. It was in Monument Square and it was done by us and we kind of felt like we kept asking for more to be louder, to be more vocal, to have a stronger sense of what Israel means to being Jewish and how it ties and how it's inseparable and our history and our learning and our children it there was eventually, I would say eventually, we connected to more and more congregations, but it was a battle for a long time. It was a battle. Um, and it was, I think so more than the attacks from the outside, which we've sort of grown to anticipate, not to this extent, I would give it that, but initially we were very prepared for that. We were not prepared for what we couldn't find in the Jewish institutions.
I do understand that. Uh, Gosh, I mean, well, was this founded more as a spiritual experiment, a social necessity, or a response? It sounds like it may well have been a response to things that were missing in existing institutions.
I think it
Yeah.
was, yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Jenny and I, to Leora's point, we both spent a lot of time at other institutions. And what I will say is, like, I think one way that we talk about ourselves a lot is that in the existing and well established institution model that works in communities all over the country. I mean, it's not that what we have here in Maine is really, hugely different in terms of the types of things that you would find in other communities. It felt like the best way I can describe it was everything was a Venn diagram where you get like, you could have a religious experience over here in your synagogue, and you could go to a community event over here at another place, and you could have a friendship network over here, and you could do stuff with your kids over here. But there wasn't a place that felt like there was a group that was able to pull all of that together, that felt like the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. And so Um, for years, had been a member of another congregation. I was a teacher there. A really big thing for us is the standard model for Hebrew school everywhere is you drop off your kid and you leave for several hours and you come back and your kid's been made Jewish, over the course of many years. And that just felt not what I wanted. I love being Jewish. I love imparting that love onto my children. I love participating in that with my husband. It strengthens our relationship. And I just wanted to find more people who wanted to be the full overlapping circles of everything in that Venn diagram. And we had to make it ourselves because it wasn't around.
Amazing, amazing. And gosh, my wife is director of religious education for our joint religious school here. We have Beth Israel in Bangor's the conservative synagogue, and we've joined efforts with Bethel, the Reform congregation, and I don't mind saying this out loud. I think it's important to talk about. One of the reasons why we struggle with this arrangement is that we do have to kind of mute the Zionism component on our side. Congregation Beth Israel is a very Zionist congregation, very strong connections to Israel. Leah and I both have many relatives and loved ones there. Um, and yeah, to hear this, it's how central is Zionism to this program?
I would
The
say
middle of the Venn diagram.
yeah, one of the things that was really important to us was that our we could have a place where we could have multiple perspectives. So, multiple ways of being religious, multiple ways of looking at politics. But you need something that will unite everyone and make everyone love each other and realize, we all have the same good intentions. We just might have different ways of getting there or believing that we get there. And Zionism is central to that. So everyone in our community has a true love of Israel and the Jewish people. And then everything else, we can disagree on, but we know that we all have the same value at heart.
That's great. And I guess, you know, uh, this probably button hooks with this question. What does home, or by it mean in your name, not just literally, but communally and theologically?
I I think I mean, I can see it in our group where I think for us, for me, right, it's the safe place. It's the safest space that you can be. And we are, all of us, Jewish, are out in the world and we are faced with attacks on many levels, right? All day long. And not just attacks, but a lot of indifference or lack of knowledge or uncaring, right? It's not just the Jew hatred or anti-Semitism. It's also being in workplaces where we're not really seen and we can't speak about the things that we want to speak about. We can't necessarily form the relationships that we want to form. And so Habayit became that safe space. And very early on, we keep sort of going back to October 7th, but when we were together in a room, when we were outside of the room, we were in battle mode or really in defense mode, right? Most of the day. And we would walk into a room and all of the defenses would come down. And you'd know that other people are thinking what you're thinking, are sharing the same experiences. And it became a space where you didn't have to fight or defend. You were just safe. And you see that with people coming to Habayit, it's their safe space. It's the space where they feel most at ease, most comfortable. They know that we share a common value. And like Jennie said, we might not agree on the politics or on the way to get there, but just being united in that way it offers an immense source of comfort for our people. And that's home
When
to me, right? Home is comfort.
Yeah. Uh, when you guys put this together, did you imagine it as an alternative to kind of synagogue life? The dropping off of kids and picking them up at the end, or is it a compliment to it, or is it something else entirely?
I think it's really what families want it to be. So we have families who are doing a traditional Hebrew school and also coming to our Shabbat program. But I would say the majority of families feel like this is where their kids are being educated. And I think the best part is that the families are there. So I remember being dropped off at Hebrew school when I was younger and feeling like, well, my parents get to go out to breakfast and have fun, and it's a beautiful Sunday, and I'm just going to be stuck in this classroom. But because everyone is there and everyone is engaged in something else, it becomes a place where people want to be, where the kids want to be, and it doesn't really feel like learning. So I guess it's something else entirely, but we are teaching the kids and we're teaching each other, and our kids are learning Hebrew at a pretty rapid pace, and they're learning, Torah stories and Jewish values and all the good stuff we learn in Hebrew school. But hopefully, it's learning by learning through activity and fun and community.
Does
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
I just want to add one thing that I don't want to, um, when we first set it up, we thought we want to try to figure out how to work really hard to convince the adults that they should stay because so many people were coming from this other model. And I remember we were like, well, maybe if someone has a talent and they want to do a painting class or whatever the case may be, we're trying to like drum up all these ideas for how to get people to stay. And what is happening with the adult discussion group and the reason that the adults are staying and what they're doing together, the three of us are teaching in a classroom. So we don't even see that, but there are, 20 to 30 of them there at a time. They have built their own community. They show up, they stay, they teach each other. They do all the things that I think were beyond anything we even dreamed of, going from, oh gosh, can we convince them not to leave, to I don't think we could make them leave if we tried. Sometimes we have to pull them out of that room to go to lunch or do the next thing or whatever. And it's like pulling teeth. They don't want to leave it. And so that's like, it is part to your answer your question is definitely, like Jennie said, part of our model, but it has grown into its own expression of that as well organically.
We have a whole group of men who, I don't know why it's just men out there, but who don't want to engage in the discussion and they play board games. And then we have all these other adults who maybe don't want to engage in the discussion, but they want to be in the classrooms and they want to be participating in that way. So
Mhm.
it's a cool experience too to have kids in there with their parents learning. Um, and I think it's good modeling for your children to be a lifelong learner.
Sounds so wonderful. How did I guess these would probably be like more of the Maine specific questions here, but how does being in Portland, Maine shape your Jewish practice differently than if you were, say, located in Boston, New York, or elsewhere?
Mm.
I mean, I
Gotta
know
work
for
for it.
again, just offering it's I don't want to always like hone in on the Israeli thing, but just offering the Israeli perspective, we are such a small community. Like Boston is massive, and they have so many resources, right? They have the Israeli American Council, they have um, the Israeli Bayit, they have Keshit, they have all of this programming that's centered around being Israeli and preserving that while you're in somewhere else, right? While you're not in Israel. And so when you're looking at Boston or right, or even Houston or Miami or LA, right? There's such big communities and they're so active and so connected to each other. And so I think from our perspective, it's having to work harder to generate that community. Um, and not it was right. It's a matter of not accepting that it doesn't exist, but creating it ourselves.
Well, Maine does carry that kind of ethos of independence and intentional living. Would it be fair to say that's influenced your approach here?
So are you asking that because it's where we live, that we're more enterprising and willing to build? That's a good question. I don't think I've thought about it that way before. I think it would be interesting to consider that people who find themselves in Maine already have the mindset that they're not going to have things handed to them from a community infrastructure standpoint. So we do have to work a little harder for it. I also just think if I, and one thing I think about a lot and we talk about a lot is the Israeli mentality. If you will it, it is no dream. I think that that is something that absolutely is imbued in everything that we do. We really highlight our uh, Israeli everything, not just our people in the group who have an Israeli connection, which is a huge percentage of our group, but we really try to incorporate the Israeli version of anything we do whenever we talk about holidays, when we think about values, when we think about crafts, when we think about songs, when we think about food, all of it starts there. And built into that, obviously, is this like total can do, build it yourself attitude. And I think that probably has something to do with how we've created what we've created as well. I don't know if you guys agree.
Yeah, we joke we're our own little kibbutz in Maine here. I mean, you walk in and everyone's holding each other's kids and cooking, and it's communal effort. But maybe that's a Maine thing too. I don't know. I think people can sometimes be closed off in New England and Maine in particular, especially in the winter. So I think it's probably more of an Israeli ethos than a Maine one.
No, it's also, I grew up in a very bucolic, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. When I was a kid, it was a very small. We had enough to sustain three congregations in our town, but it was the three flavors. It was Orthodox, Reform, and Conservative, and that was that. Uh, and moving to Maine, it was so familiar. It's not now. I go back to Pennsylvania, and it's more like a Jersey, Baltimore satellite now than it is a small town Jewish life, but. It really feels like the character. It does remind me of time spent on a kibbutz and what my daughter has done with Habanim Dror. Uh, I don't know. I'd be excited to sit in on your guys' program sometime. It
You're
sounds
welcome
so.
anytime, anytime you're willing. So that's the other thing. We're very, so long as you're aligned with our Zionist value, you're welcome to join, and it's a very open group, right? And so we joke that our test for new people is the Zionist test, and if you can pass it, then you're welcome. And we have people from all generations and all styles join the group. Sometimes they join for a discussion, sometimes they come, they join for a meal so it's very open for people to come in and out as they want.
That is amazing. I mean, I guess specific questions about your program. What balance do you try to strike between tradition and innovation? And do you even think of it as what you're doing as innovation, or are you just doing, just doing what feels right? Is it?
I'm not sure it's totally innovative in terms of I think we originally, this idea was sort of sparked on the idea, I forget what we were listening to, but it was talking about how Jewish summer camp is one of the three strongest indicators of children becoming Jewish, hanging onto their Jewish identities. And so we're like, what if we got that summer camp vibe all year long? And then, and they learned that way because it's such a strong predictor. So it's not innovative in that way, but to then transition it to the model we've used is maybe more innovative. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think for me it was, listening to, right, some of our favorite philosopher podcasters, right? Like Unpacked and Chaviv Gur, and um, hearing them verbalize the things that we have experienced in terms of Jewish education and the type of Jewish education, and really these Jewish kids finding themselves unarmed in the face of a lot of hate and a lot of misinformation and a lot of and how do we better educate our children? So this change in model from just Hasbara, right? You have to love Israel. There's no, right? There's no questioning it. There's no doubting it. There's no, right? But actually having the hard conversations with them. So I do think we're innovative in that way, or we're following the wave of innovation, where we have to change how we talk to our children about Israel. And we always say we love Israel responsibly. What does that mean? You don't love it just because you're required to. You understand it. You understand how it's tied to your people, how it's your history, how it's your culture, and you don't just accept the things that aren't great or good or right. You challenge those things. And so my hope is that that's how our education will help our children be better prepared, better armed, um, more equipped to have harder conversations.
It sounds, at the risk of being redundant, it sounds fantastic. One of our frustrations over the years, and I now have, we're in an interesting spot. We have two adult children and one oops that's now 11, right on the precipice of preparing for her bat mitzvah. And one of the frustrations that I find with Jewish education, I'm saying this as a soon to be rabbi, and my wife, the Gratz educated Jewish educator. The frustration we find is that it's so oriented around performance, ritual performance for that one occasion, and then after that, it's like you hit a wall and the kids drop away, the parents disappear from shul, you never see these folks again. Um, do you guys feel like you have an antidote here with this? It kind of sounds like you do.
Yeah, we haven't had a kid go through the process yet. My daughter is going to be the first one. She's the oldest of the group that didn't come in already having had that experience. We do have a couple of teenagers that had their bar bat mitzvah before we started. But one thing we talk about all the time is how we want just like you described that wall, it's not this like means to an end to get to that point and then you're Jewish at 13, good luck to you. We want it to really start there, and we want to begin the process of, once you hit that, then you can be part of these adult discussion groups. And so there's that modeling of that behavior that Jennie mentioned. So it is a lifelong learning thing. The other thing is, we've always talked about how um, we want these kids to the first thing we want them to love being Jewish, and the rest of it will follow. Because if we force them into the performance of the ritual and they hate it the whole time, there's a 50-50 or greater chance that we'll lose them anyway. So if we can do the love of Judaism and Jewish identity first, an interesting marker that I just started thinking about the other day was, it seems every week that I teach K through 3 in our group, I see more kids coming in rocking like big Magen David necklaces. So they have these big stars of David, and they're wearing them outside of their shirt, and they're wearing them to school. And the little kids want them. And to me, it's like, okay, we did it. We made wearing a Star of David cool. They're wearing it outside of this community. If that's the angle that we go with, the rest of the stuff will fall into place. Do we want them as adults to feel comfortable walking into any synagogue and knowing what's going on and being able to sing along or follow the prayers? Yes, definitely. But it's not the primary driver behind the model forward.
And we are taking steps to make sure that they do that. We go to Eitz Chaim Synagogue in Portland almost once a month so that they can be in a beautiful old synagogue. It's gorgeous. And Rabbi Berenson is amazing, and Cantor Shayla Nisis. And so they're getting exposure to that. And our singing in the morning has prayer in it, and they're learning to read Hebrew. And then they're going to be learning to speak Hebrew. So when it's time to train for their B'nai Mitzvah, it will feel a little more natural and not just, we're hoping like it's rote memorization.
Oh, I could listen to Sheila sing all day. That's fantastic. That is amazing. Uh, so I guess that that does kind of lead to with Eitz Chaim. How do you navigate denominational labels, if at all? Do you guys have to square with that too much, or?
I would say we're incredibly grateful for Rabbi Berenson and Cantor Nessis and being at home at Chaim, and we're where our people are everything and nothing, right? I think we've done a great job capturing people that were non-affiliated. I think the Israelis are notorious, right, for not really being affiliated with any one congregation or another. And so we've done a really great job of creating a space where they feel like that's acceptable and that's okay. Um, and I don't know, I think having the option to choose is huge, right? And so we've talked about B'nai Mitzvah too, and what does that look like? And that might look different in one family from another, and having that option of saying, uh, a kid, one child wants to do it this way and another wants to do it that way. And maybe another child wants to do it at the top of Masada, and all of those things are acceptable, and none of those things are bad. They're all different expressions of Jewish joy and what it means for us to be Jewish.
And that's a good jumping off point for another question. I reading your website, talking to you guys, it sounds very much like a very inclusive space. And so I'm curious what that means in practice for interfaith families, for LGBTQ plus Jews, secular Jews. The Israelis come to mind, and Jews by choice, especially. That can be really hard for folks to find inclusive spaces that are really, where there's not that kind of gatekeeping culture. So I guess, yeah, what does inclusivity mean to you guys in practice?
I know that there are a ton of us converts in the group, like lots, which is really cool because typically in other spaces, I'm the only one. And it took me years to get over the imposter syndrome that typically comes with that. And now it's just a huge part of our community, like a statistically, uh, improbable part of our community, probably.
50% are Jew by choice or intermarried. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
So we definitely have that diversity. We have, interfaith families where the non-Jewish parents will come and like fully participate in our discussion groups and fully participate in sitting in the classroom and supporting. And sometimes they're the most supportive parents of all, are the ones who are willing to, invest the time and energy that it takes to be in our community because like Jennie said, it is a kibbutz. We do expect everyone to participate and to help out and to be part of it. I think, you did see on our website that we are open and inclusive. I think as we grow, we're getting to know more families better. And we certainly, I just keep going back to the political spectrum. For many years, I was very much in an echo chamber politically. And this is one of the first places where I have made real relationships with people who do not vote the way that I do. And that has been like so refreshing and awesome. And another thing that we model for our kids that you can't find in other places in America right now. So I would say we're very inclusive. Um, we don't know what we don't know because we don't advertise. We're very word of mouth. So we don't know who we might be missing if anyone feels differently about that. Again, the gatekeeping is the Z word. If you're cool with that word and identifying yourself that way, then come hang out.
Love it. Um, I guess one of the things that oh gosh, grassroots efforts. I think they're the lifeblood of the Jewish world. I mean, everything we ever do has started somewhere with a grassroots effort. Uh, the question, the challenge for everyone is how do you maintain that grassroots vibe that's so vital to what you do? How do you maintain that as your program grows?
Yeah, I think that's the real challenge, right? How do we not become so institutionalized that people start interacting with us as, I mean, we want to offer stability for our community and we want to make sure that they know that we're strong and stable and around for the long haul. And at the same time, I think, this kibbutz model where everybody contributes and everybody does something, and our adult discussions are led by other adults in the group, and other events are led by other adults, and everybody's hands-on and in classrooms and contributes ideas, or there's something for everybody to do, and we need everybody doing. This is not our primary job. We each have our own jobs and very busy lives, and so we truly depend on our community to step up in that way. And I think that makes it feel that they know that they're needed, because they are needed. And so, when it's time for pitching in and doing something. And so I think that will maintain our feeling of grassroots and connected to the community, and the community is connected to us.
Beautiful. Uh, have you run into any moments yet where your kind of founding ideals have been challenged by a community need or well, anything really? Have you found any challenges to your founding ideals yet?
This is a very long pause. Is it a no?
It's
I,
a,
you know, um, I don't there we meet every Tuesday night, and the three of us, and we plan out the world, and then we text all day every day, and we plan everything out, and we fight 7 to 8 fires a day, no question. There's always something that with running any organization where that has to happen. And so, the severity of the thing and whether or not how much it's testing our metal is actually wonderful, because it forces us to always return back to the same thing, that this is ours. We know what we want. We built it for these specific reasons. We are going to keep doing it for those reasons. We feel in the marrow of our bones that this is something that is necessary, and we will fight for it. And so I think externally, if there are any things that could ever potentially shake us, we've discussed what those things could be, and how we would handle it. We talk about that a lot. Internally, we find that if something pops up that is maybe worrisome, they typically sort themselves out. The group will, consume the bump and pull it back down, and it won't be an issue, or there'll be an open discussion, and people will very active WhatsApp with multiple subgroups, and we don't moderate it. We're all adults. We're all passionate. We can all talk about whatever we want, however we want. There's no rules in that sense. And so I don't feel worried that I haven't felt like there's anything that has really shook our foundation yet. Maybe there will be, but everything up until this point has been really good practice for us to keep coming back to that sense of the foundation that we have.
And I
amazing.
think that's part of the modeling, right? That we talk about. Like, if we're going to try to teach our children that you cannot have agreement, you cannot have a conversation without having a disagreement. You cannot ever find compromise without having a dialogue. And so we've definitely have instances where we're like, should we jump in? Should we calm this fire? Should we? And then we're like, people need to be able to have these conversations. And if we keep trying to put out the fire and not let people resolve to a degree, resolve their conflict in a respectful way, always in a respectful way, and we do maintain that. How are we going to model that to our children?
And seeing each other every week, I mean, it humanizes you when you see someone with their family, with their kids, with their parents sometimes, and you look them in the eye and you eat a meal together. With social media and this world at large, we lose the humanity behind the screen, and I think that that's something we really emphasize. We have to see each other. We only let people in the WhatsApp group who have showed up, because you need to know that you're talking to a real human.
Beautiful. Well, I guess that does. What does this is all just sounds like the ingredients for success, and maybe you're not measuring this in terms of success, but just what, the sheer joy of what you're doing day to day. But what does this look like for you guys in 10 years? What do you, I mean, I feel like since October 7th, we're all aging in dog years at this point anyway. So 10 years is a long way off, but uh, do you guys have a feeling, a sense for where you'll be with this in 10 years?
Well, we're moving into our own space. That's very exciting. That's happening very soon. And so I think that's the next chapter in Habayit is having a permanent bite. So that's gonna feel, I think, incredible and very grounding to be in our own space, which we haven't had the luxury of because we've been renting and moving stuff in and out every single week. And yeah, I think once we're in our own home, then opportunities are endless.
But
That
I
is
think we
great.
all envision, yeah, sorry.
Like, see, you guys are getting your own space. Is it with at the Eitz Chaim, or is it elsewhere? I mean, if you guys aren't comfortable answering that in a public podcast, that's also cool. I don't know.
We'll be in Cumberland. Most of our families live north of Portland. And so we sort of took a survey and looked for a space that would be good for us. And I think when you talk about the future, we like to envision, all our kids, even when they go to college, and even as we grow older, coming back to this space and seeing it as a home away from home. It's another place for them to go, even just to bring a laptop and do some work and have a cup of coffee, and they'll find someone there who, they've known for years.
I hear mahjong grows on people too if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get there. I, and I guess you partially answered this. And I noticed your website, you're looking for partners. Are you trying to grow this, or do you want to remain kind of intentionally intimate?
I think I will answer that by saying we are in such rapid, unintentional, rapid growth without trying, frankly. Like people come out of the woodwork when they hear about us, and new families show up almost every week. And we are, in the very beginning stages of founding this organization, that the time when the three of us are able to get together to like think really big and think that far into the future is limited. And so I'm hoping that the point of being in our own space, some of the opportunity that is endless in that, the time that we save without coming and going, and where we can stay focused, and we can buy ourselves the luxury of being able to think bigger than we have really been able to at this point. Um, I think I mean, I'll just say, I don't think we know yet. I think the growth that we've had so far is so organic, and it has constantly led us in more and more surprising directions than we thought we would ever go. That I'll just speak for myself personally, that like you can dream big, but sometimes the places where you naturally go are even bigger and crazier than your wildest dreams. And I say I feel that way already. Like if you told me a year ago that we would be doing what we're doing right now, um, I don't know that I would have believed it.
It's sort of like we found a real gap that was not a real need that was not being met. And so when Julia talks about, we get a new family almost every week, that is true. Almost every week this year, we've gained at least one new family. And when they arrive at this home, they feel like they're at home and they stay, and that's magical on its own. And so I I agree. I think, we are we are navigating this sort of uncharted waters, and we are very excited by that. And I can definitely see us, 10 years from now sitting in that little office with a bunch of babies and teenagers around us. But I also know that the community has just as much of a say in what it's going to look like. And I'm excited to see like what new needs they're going to come up with or what new adventures they would like to go on, right? Because I think that's part of the magic of Habayit is that somebody can say, well, I really want to teach a yoga class to this group. Let's go on more hikes, or how do we teach these kids to cook, right? And so like really creating the space for people to express that.
This is, it just sounds, from the outside looking in, that you either deliberately, intentionally, or just by default have really prioritized the authenticity of community over, uh, there's obligation obviously in Jewish life, but we institutional Judaism, and I say this as a synagogue president, I'm usually the youngest person there, and I'm in my 50s. Um, and I look at what you guys are doing, and there's a little bit of envy that you're able to build this and gin up this interest from families in particular. Um, I, in an era of declining institutional affiliation in Judaism, are you guys finding hope in what you're doing? I mean, I imagine you are, or you wouldn't be doing it, but it may be an obvious question, but um,
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't think I've ever felt so fulfilled in my life. Um, and I mean, I don't want to sound like selfish or like it's all about me, but it is this feeling. Like one of the songs we sing is how uh, we have so much to give, and the more you give, the more you have to give. And I really feel that way. Um, and I think a lot of the community members feel that way.
if
I think part of our secret sauce that we haven't talked about yet, too, it's kind of implied, but to your point around, the ages that the kids, right, is our original motto is maximum children, and you have to put it in all caps with like multiple exclamation points at the end. And Jenny's husband kind of coined it, and we use it all the time because we are like, we not only welcome chaos, but sometimes it feels like we encourage it. And there is nothing sacred or precious where a kid can't be crying or running around or, making mischief or being with other kids. And the spaces where people feel comfortable bringing their kids without worrying about their behavior or what other people are going to think or what other people are going to say. It's just like a kid magnet. Like people just, there's crazy children everywhere. And for some people, maybe they don't love how that feels, but for the rest of us, it's like we're just picking up the chaos in our house and bringing it to another place where we feel really comfortable. And that's been really successful too, I think, is just the maximum children component.
maximum
It's the
children, I
difference
love
a little
that.
bit between being in a synagogue, right? You're very much expected to behave and be controlled and quiet and respectful. And it's a challenge for our children in synagogue sometimes to be able to make that transition, but definitely something that we're um, learning with them and working towards of how do you change from the chaos to, but to be able to be in a learning environment where chaos is allowed and crafting and messes and laughter and singing and it's they want to be there. And I think that's a different experience for a lot of our parents too, of children who are saying, can I go to Hebrew school? When do we go to Hebrew school? I miss my friends from Hebrew school. And like children actually wanting to be in that space. I think that's part of why our Hebrew program, Learning Hebrew, has sort of like excelled in the way that it is because we made it challenging and fun and a competition, and the kids like to battle and who's going fastest and who's learning the most and who sounds more Israeli and and it's fun for them. And we're reading books and we're learning, Israeli slang, and so fun to see a first grader coming up to me and like asking me manishma and answering sababa or like doing shesheva with their hands to every question, and
Oh my goodness.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
and it's just instilling that in them that it can be fun, and it's a space they want to be in.
And this is a question for each of you. Has founding this has it changed your own Jewish practices at all?
I would say for me, definitely like the secular Israeli for sure. I mean, we laugh all the time that we're sort of like, we look at the Israeli for the answer, and I have the least amount of that. Like, we are forced to learn all of these things at school, but it's like anything that you're forced to learn, right? As soon as you pass the test, it's left behind. And so I find myself re-engaging with a lot of these stories that are like core memories. And like Julia and Jenny will say, do you know this? Do you remember this? And my first answer is always no. And then I have to sort of sit back and say, wait, somebody taught me this once. And if I just didn't hate it so much, I would remember it. And so being able to kind of go back and re-engage with these things that are now fun and exciting, and being able to teach that to the kids, it's just a different level of engagement and learning.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I converted about 15 years ago, and I was raised in a Episcopalian home in Bangor, St. John's Episcopal Church, right next to Bethel. And I give my parents credit, like they were very insistent that you should be raised with a tradition and ritual and liturgy and a community. They didn't want us to be vanilla. And that was a great experience to understand how religious practice kind of worked and like what a community could be. It just was never for me. But then when I met like real larger communities of Jewish kids in college, and I realized these kids came from all over the place, but they shared this common thing, like they were in a club or a tribe even together. And I was like, what is that all about? And then met my now husband and started the process of conversion. And it was like a drug. It just coursed through my body. I was so passionate. It was so exhilarating. It's all I thought about all the time. And then when we moved back to Maine, it was just this kind of like sad decline into like kind of going through the motions. And I hadn't reached that high again until I met these guys and we started doing this, and now I'm like back in that high again, and I can't wait to do traditional, religious, spiritual, like all this stuff. I just want it all the time again. And that had died or gone into deep hibernation for me, and now it's like roaring back again.
Gosh. I have to say this has been one of my favorite interviews I've done on this podcast so far. And what you guys are doing, I just applaud you. It is amazing. I just being able to talk to people that are infusing the Maine Jewish community with this kind of energy and is, we've got people learning how to be to become do become shochet a shochet, and we've got people learning how to be scribes. We've got people doing these great programs for our kids. um, I I think there's a strong argument. I don't want too many people to move to Maine, because then everybody's going to get in on our secret sauce. But at the same time, this feels like a very organic future for uh, North American Jewish life being incubated here. Um, I hope you guys are all very proud of you. Well, I know you have to be proud of your work. This is amazing. I do like to finish off every podcast when I interview folks. Uh, if you guys don't mind going around, I in these times, like we're hearing all the time the most awful things as Jews, as Israelis, as it, what brings you Jewish joy these days, and would you mind sharing that with our audience?
Is it too cliche to say that we have this singing session at the very beginning of our of our program, and I'm not a singer. I don't like to sing, but when I'm there, I'm like truly in the moment and um, singing these songs in Hebrew with the guitars going and just with my people. I think that's when I really feel Jewish joy right now.
Don't think that's cliche at all. It's beautiful.
Um, I think for me, I like to describe myself as an anxious extrovert. So like I like doing and meeting and talking to people, but it gives me a lot of anxiety. And so sometimes when we're in our chaos, it feels like there's everything's moving around so fast. And then for me, I've been like challenging myself to find the small moments, capture the small moments, because if I can slow down and see our group really and like sitting around together and eating lunch, or at Shabbat Lux when all the kids are running around outside but the adults get to like have really meaningful conversations, and those small connections of community. When I left Israel, I left behind a life of high school friends and army friends and people that family, and I didn't think I would ever find that again. And then Hawaii came, and it was sort of like, this is the family, the community that I was missing. And so, really honing in on those moments of togetherness, I think to me is, and being proud of who we are and saying that with our chest, has been really meaningful and has brought a lot of joy to me.
Beautiful.
I think I'm there's so many different things I could say. I mean, we talk so much about the kids and how they are proud to be Jewish and the joy they have, but to talk about, just to put a really fine point on, every week the other adults in our group approach us together or individually and are so authentically grateful for what we have built. And they always say it like, what you guys built, like the three of us. So I absolutely feel proud of that. But it wouldn't exist if they didn't show up every week and bring their instruments or cook their food or drag their 1 billion children with them or whatever, give up their Saturday Shabbat morning to be with us. That makes me feel so happy because you can see, like we've discussed, the pain we all carried in here, it just evaporates and it's gone and it's just replaced by joy. And so the feeling of having it, doubled and tripled and just multiplied by, feeding off all the same joy that you feel by seeing it happen with other adults and having them just look you right in the eye and thank you. You can't beat that.
Well, with that, that is with all of that, with your Jewish joy, with everything, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If people would like to donate to your program, is that something they can do?
Sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we're fairly easy to find online. So we can share our contact information, but we are definitely in growth mode and would love any kind of participation that people are willing, right? It doesn't, whatever people are willing to share, we're happy to to partner and participate in that. And just like we said, we've grown organically, and we're sure that there's a lot of people who are feeling isolated or alone and don't know that we exist.
Well, should I tell people to visit you at www.mainehabayit.org? I'm very happy to do that if it's helpful.
Sounds like you just did.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, check that out, and we'll put, if you guys don't mind, we'll put that link up with the podcast as well. Um, and thank you all so much for joining us. I wish you so much success. Thank you again, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is really fun.